Before we begin the story, leave a comment telling us where you're watching from. Enjoy the story. The fluorescent lights in the conference room felt like interrogation lamps. Lily Morgan sat frozen in her chair, hands clenched so tightly in her lap that her knuckles had gone white. The cream silk veil covering the lower half of her face suddenly felt suffocating, like it was closing in around her throat. Across the polished mahogany table, 3 executives from Sterling Communications sat in judgment. Jessica Palmer, head of human resources, wore a smile that never reached her cold blue eyes. Martin Cross, the balding creative director, couldn't even look at Lily directly. And Amanda Wells, the younger marketing manager, stared at Lily's veil with barely disguised contempt. "Miss Morgan," Jessica began, her voice syrupy sweet in a way that made Lily's stomach turn, "we need to discuss your future with this company." Lily's heart hammered against her ribs. She'd worked at Sterling Communications for 8 months. 8 months of 12-hour days and weekend shifts. 8 months of campaigns that exceeded every target, of clients singing her praises, of results that spoke for themselves. "Your work performance has been satisfactory," Jessica continued, and Lily caught the deliberate pause before that word. Satisfactory. As if tripling their social media engagement was merely adequate. As if single-handedly saving the Riverside campaign from disaster was just okay. "However," Martin interjected, finally meeting Lily's eyes, "we have concerns about your presentation." Here it comes, Lily thought, the real reason they'd called her in. "Sterling Communications is a media company," Amanda said, leaning forward with an expression of fake concern. "We sell image, beauty, aspiration. Our employees are the face of our brand." The face of our brand. The irony wasn't lost on Lily. "The veil," Jessica said bluntly, pointing at Lily's face as if it were evidence in a trial. "It makes clients uncomfortable. Several have mentioned it to us. They find it unprofessional, distracting. Lies. All lies." Lily had never received a single complaint from a client. Most forgot about the veil after the first 5 minutes. They cared about results, about campaigns that worked, about return on their investment. "I have a medical condition," Lily said quietly, hating how her voice wavered. "The veil is necessary for—" "We understand you have some kind of facial issue," Amanda interrupted, waving her hand dismissively. "But surely there are better options. Professional makeup artists, cosmetic procedures, treatments that would be more appropriate for our work environment." Facial issue. As if the port wine-stained birthmark that covered the right side of her face was a problem she'd simply chosen not to solve. As if the 24 years she'd spent trying every treatment, every laser, every cream hadn't happened. As if the hours in doctor's offices and the pain of failed procedures were just inconveniences she hadn't bothered to address. "Are you firing me because of my face?" Lily asked, her voice stronger now, anger beginning to burn through the shame. Jessica's expression hardened. "We're terminating your employment due to failure to meet company standards regarding professional presentation. You'll receive 2 weeks severance. Security will escort you out within the hour." The words hit like a physical blow. Lily stood abruptly, her chair scraping against the floor. "This is discrimination. I could sue." "You could try," Martin said with a shrug, "but it won't change anything. This decision is final." Jessica stood as well, signaling the end of the conversation. "We wish you the best in your future endeavors, Miss Morgan. Someone from security will be up shortly to help you gather your belongings." Help? What a joke. They meant to make sure she didn't steal anything or cause a scene on her way out. Lily walked out of that conference room with her head high, even though her legs felt like they might give out at any moment. The other employees in the open office space looked up as she passed. Some quickly looked away. Others whispered behind their hands. None of them met her eyes. At her cubicle, Lily stared at the space she'd occupied for 8 months, the framed photo of her younger sister Emma, grinning in her college graduation gown. The coffee mug Emma had given her last Christmas with "World's Best Big Sister" painted in wobbly letters. A small, succulent plant that had somehow survived despite Lily's neglect. Her degrees and certifications still hung on the cubicle wall, mocking her now. She pulled a cardboard box from under her desk and started packing. Her hands moved mechanically, placing items in the box without really seeing them. The photo, the mug, her noise-canceling headphones, a notebook filled with campaign ideas she'd never get to implement now. Security arrived before she'd finished. A young guard who looked embarrassed to be there shifted uncomfortably. "Miss Morgan, I'm sorry, but I need to escort you out now." Lily nodded. She understood. She was a threat now. Someone who might steal company secrets or make a scene in the lobby, as if she had the energy for either. The elevator ride down 27 floors felt eternal. Lily watched the numbers descend, each floor a layer of her dignity being stripped away. When the doors finally opened to the marble lobby, she stepped out into the afternoon sunlight feeling hollow. She set her box down on the sidewalk and just stood there for a moment, trying to breathe. The city moved around her with indifferent momentum. Cars honked. People rushed past with coffee cups and briefcases. The world kept turning, completely unconcerned with her personal catastrophe. Her phone buzzed. A text from Emma. "How's work going? Still on for dinner tonight?" Lily stared at the message. How could she tell her little sister, who looked up to her, who believed Lily could do anything, that she'd been fired for being too ugly? How could she explain that all her education and experience and talent meant nothing when measured against a birthmark and a piece of silk? She typed back, "Rain check? Have some things to handle tonight." Another lie to add to the growing pile. Lily picked up her box and started walking with no real destination in mind. She just needed to move, to do something, to not stand still and feel the full weight of what had just happened crushing down on her. 4 blocks later, she realized she was crying. Tears soaked into the edge of her veil, leaving dark stains on the cream silk. She ducked into an alley, set the box down, and let herself break properly. Deep, gasping sobs that shook her whole body. Tears that she'd been holding back in that conference room, in the elevator, on the street. "God," she whispered to the empty alley. "What am I supposed to do now?" The brick walls didn't answer. The dumpster offered no advice. And Lily Morgan, 24 years old with a brilliant mind and a face the world had decided was too different to deserve success, had no idea what came next. She pulled out her phone and opened her banking app. The severance would last maybe 6 weeks if she was careful. Rent was due in 12 days. Her savings account, never impressive to begin with, now looked pathetic. Lily forced herself to breathe slowly. In through her nose, out through her mouth. She couldn't fall apart completely. Not here, not now. Emma was depending on her. She was the responsible older sister, the one who had it all together, the one with the good job and the bright future. Except she didn't have a job anymore, and the future looked terrifyingly uncertain. She wiped her eyes, picked up her box, and continued walking. By the time she reached her apartment, the sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink that felt too beautiful for such an awful day. Inside her small studio apartment, Lily set the box on her tiny kitchen counter and collapsed onto her second-hand couch. She stared at the ceiling, replaying the meeting in her mind. Jessica's cold smile, Amanda's dismissive wave, Martin's inability to look her in the eye, the veil. It always came back to the veil. Lily reached up and untied it slowly, letting the silk fall away. She walked to the bathroom and looked in the mirror, forcing herself to see what others saw. The port wine-stained birthmark spread across her right cheek and jaw, deep crimson against her pale skin. It extended down her neck in irregular patterns like spilled wine on a tablecloth. She'd been born with it. Her mother used to say it looked like a rose, trying to make it sound beautiful instead of different. But roses were delicate and romantic. This was angry and permanent, a mark that set her apart from the moment she entered the world. Growing up had been brutal. Kids at school had called her monster, strawberry face, damaged goods. Teenagers had mocked her, excluded her from parties, made sure she understood she wasn't like them. Adults had stared with pity or disgust, their discomfort written plainly across their faces. So she'd started wearing the veils 5 years ago, after a particularly horrible incident at a job interview where the interviewer had visibly recoiled upon seeing her face. The veils didn't make the birthmark disappear, but they gave her some control. People looked at the veil instead of the mark. They asked questions about the fabric instead of what was wrong with her face. But even that wasn't enough. Even hiding behind silk hadn't protected her from being thrown away like garbage. Lily's phone rang, startling her out of her thoughts. Emma's name flashed on the screen. She considered not answering, but Emma would just worry and show up at her apartment. "Hey," Lily said, trying to sound normal. "Lily, I'm so glad I caught you. Listen, I know you said rain check, but I'm already near your place, and I brought Thai food. I'm not taking no for an answer. You've been working too hard lately. You need food and sister time." Before Lily could protest, Emma was knocking on her door. Lily opened the door to find Emma standing there with bags of Thai food and a smile that could light up the darkest room. At 21, Emma was everything Lily had tried to protect her from being. Open, optimistic, believing the world was fundamentally good. Surprise! Emma pushed past her into the apartment, then stopped short when she saw Lily's face without the veil, eyes red from crying, the cardboard box on the counter. "Lily? What happened?" And just like that, Lily's carefully constructed walls crumbled. She told Emma everything: the meeting, the accusations, the firing, the words "too ugly" that hadn't been said explicitly but had hung in the air like poison gas. Emma listened, her face cycling through shock, anger, and finally settling on fierce protectiveness. When Lily finished, Emma pulled her into a tight hug. "Those people are monsters," Emma said, her voice shaking with rage. "Absolute monsters. You're brilliant, Lily. What they did is illegal. It's discrimination. You should sue them into oblivion." "With what money?" Lily laughed bitterly. "Lawyers are expensive. They have an entire legal department. I have 2 weeks severance and a sister in college." "Then we'll figure something else out." Emma pulled back, gripping Lily's shoulders. "You're going to find something better. A place that actually deserves you. Those idiots at Sterling Communications have no idea what they just lost." Lily wanted to believe her. She really did. But belief required hope, and hope felt like a luxury she couldn't afford right now. They ate Thai food sitting on the floor of Lily's apartment, Emma determinedly steering. The conversation toward lighter topics: stories about her classes, gossip about her roommate, plans for summer break. Normal things that made the disaster of the day feel slightly less catastrophic. After Emma left, Promising to call tomorrow and threatening to fight anyone who looked at Lily wrong, Lily sat down at her laptop. She needed a job. Needed it desperately. Rent wouldn't pay itself. She opened job search sites and started scrolling. Most positions required experience she had, but would never hire someone who wore a veil. Others paid so little, she'd need 3 of them just to cover rent. A few looked promising until she read the requirements. Professional appearance mandatory? Or client-facing role requires polished presentation. Code words. All of them. Ways of saying people like you need not apply without technically breaking discrimination laws. Hours passed. Lily's eyes burned from staring at the screen. She was about to give up for the night when a new listing appeared. Executive assistant needed. Blackwood Enterprises. Competitive salary. Immediate start. Discretion and professionalism required. Lily clicked on it. Blackwood Enterprises was one of the most powerful investment firms in the city. Their CEO, Alexander Blackwood, was legendary. 33 years old, self-made billionaire, known for being ruthlessly intelligent and impossibly demanding. The business press called him the Ice Prince. His competitors probably called him much worse. The salary listed made Lily's breath catch. It was triple what she'd been making at Sterling Communications. Triple. Too good to be true, obviously. They'd want someone with an Ivy League pedigree and a face that belonged in Vogue. But what did she have to lose besides another sliver of her already shattered dignity? Lily updated her resume, wrote a cover letter that tried to sound confident rather than desperate, and hit send before she could talk herself out of it. Then she closed her laptop and tried to sleep, though her mind kept racing through scenarios of rejection, of running out of money, of having to tell Emma she couldn't afford to help with college anymore. The call came at 7:30 the next morning, jolting Lily awake from a restless sleep. "Miss Morgan?" A crisp female voice spoke without preamble. "This is Victoria Steele from Blackwood Enterprises. We received your application for the executive assistant position. Are you available for an interview this afternoon? 2 o'clock?" Lily sat up so fast she nearly fell out of bed. "Yes, absolutely. I'll be there." "Excellent. Bring references and be prepared to start immediately if selected. Mr. Blackwood doesn't waste time on lengthy hiring processes." "Of course. Thank you." The line went dead. Lily stared at her phone in shock. An interview. An actual interview. At Blackwood Enterprises. She spent the next 6 hours in a state of controlled panic. She tried on 8 different outfits before settling on a navy blue suit that was professional without being boring. She pressed a fresh veil, making sure there were no wrinkles or stains. She reviewed her portfolio, practiced answers to common interview questions, and tried to convince herself that she actually had a shot at this. At 1:30, she stood outside the Blackwood Enterprises building, a gleaming tower of steel and glass that seemed to pierce the clouds. The lobby was all marble and modern art, with a security desk that looked more high-tech than most people's homes. Lily approached the receptionist, a woman with perfect hair and a smile that was probably surgically enhanced. "Lily Morgan, I have a 2 o'clock interview with Victoria Steele." The receptionist's eyes flicked to Lily's veil, lingered there for just a moment too long, then returned to her computer screen. 48th floor. Elevators are to your right." Lily rode up in a glass elevator that offered a view of the entire city shrinking below her. By the time she reached the 48th floor, her palms were sweating, and her heart was attempting to escape through her throat. Victoria Steele was exactly what Lily expected. Tall, impeccably dressed in a charcoal suit, dark hair pulled back in a bun so severe it could be used as a weapon. She shook Lily's hand with a grip that could crush bones. "Miss Morgan, thank you for coming in on short notice. Please, have a seat." The office was smaller than Lily anticipated, but no less intimidating. Glass walls overlooked the city. A single orchid sat on Victoria's desk next to 3 computer monitors displaying what looked like stock tickers and calendar schedules. "I'll be direct," Victoria said, settling into her chair with perfect posture. "Mr. Blackwood requires an assistant who can handle extreme pressure, maintain absolute confidentiality, and adapt to rapidly changing circumstances. The hours are brutal. The demands are relentless. Many people can't handle it. Can you?" "Yes," Lily said without hesitation. "I thrive under pressure. At my previous position, I managed 5 major campaigns simultaneously while coordinating with international clients across different time zones. I've never missed a deadline, and I don't believe in excuses." Victoria's eyebrow arched slightly. "Your previous position at Sterling Communications, which you left after only 8 months. Why?" The question Lily had been dreading. She could lie, spin some story about seeking new challenges, but Victoria struck her as someone who'd see through lies instantly. "I was fired," Lily said, keeping her voice steady. "The official reason was failure to meet professional presentation standards. The real reason was that my appearance, specifically my veil, made certain executives uncomfortable." Victoria's expression didn't change, but something flickered in her eyes. "The veil. You wear it because?" "I have a birthmark. A port wine stain that covers part of my face. The veil helps me manage other people's reactions to it." Lily waited for the interview to end, for Victoria to thank her for her time and show her the door. Instead, Victoria leaned back in her chair, studying Lily with sharp, calculating eyes. "Mr. Blackwood doesn't care what his employees look like," Victoria said finally. "He cares whether they can perform their duties with excellence. Your credentials are impressive. Your references, despite coming from Sterling Communications, speak highly of your work ethic and capabilities. And frankly, we need someone who can start immediately." Lily's heart stuttered. "Are you saying—" "I'm saying the position is yours if you want it. Can you start tomorrow?" "Yes," Lily said quickly, before Victoria could change her mind. "Absolutely. Thank you. You won't regret this." "We'll see," Victoria said, but there might have been the ghost of a smile on her lips. 7 a.m. sharp. Don't be late. Mr. Blackwood values punctuality above almost everything else." Lily left Blackwood Enterprises feeling like she was floating. She had a job, a real job with a salary that would not only cover rent, but actually let her save money. A job at one of the most prestigious firms in the city. She called Emma from the sidewalk, unable to wait until she got home. "I got it," Lily said as soon as Emma answered. "The job at Blackwood Enterprises. I start tomorrow." Emma's squeal of joy was so loud, Lily had to hold the phone away from her ear. "I knew it! I told you something better would come along. This is amazing, Lily. I'm so proud of you." That night, Lily could barely sleep again, but this time it was from anticipation rather than despair. She laid out her clothes for the next morning, set 3 alarms, and finally drifted off, imagining what tomorrow might bring. Lily arrived at Blackwood Enterprises at 6:45 a.m., too nervous to risk being even a minute late. The building was already alive with activity despite the early hour. People in expensive suits moved with purpose through the lobby, carrying coffee cups and leather briefcases, their faces set in expressions of focused intensity. Victoria met her on the 48th floor, looking exactly as polished as she had the day before. Lily suspected Victoria emerged from the womb wearing a perfectly tailored suit. "Good, you're early," Victoria said with an approving nod. "Come, I'll show you your workspace and brief you on Mr. Blackwood's expectations." Lily's desk sat directly outside Alexander Blackwood's office, positioned like a guardian at the gates. The space was equipped with technology that probably cost more than Lily's car. 3 monitors, a phone system with more buttons than seemed necessary, a tablet, and a chair that looked like it belonged in a spaceship. Mr. Blackwood drinks his coffee black, no sugar, in a white ceramic mug, never paper. Victoria began, speaking rapidly while Lily scrambled to take notes on her phone. "He has back-to-back meetings most days, starting at 7:30. Your job is to ensure he has everything he needs before he asks for it. Anticipate. That's the key word. Anticipate his needs. Anticipate problems. Anticipate solutions." "Understood," Lily said, her fingers flying across her phone screen. "He receives approximately 300 emails per day. Your job is to filter them, flag urgent items, delegate what can be delegated, and draft responses for his approval on standard inquiries. His calendar is sacred. Changes require his explicit approval unless it's an emergency, and your definition of emergency better match his." Victoria continued for another 20 minutes, covering everything from security protocols to the specific way documents should be formatted. Lily's head spun with information, but she absorbed it all, her mind cataloging details and creating mental systems for managing the flood of responsibilities. "Questions?" Victoria asked finally. "What's Mr. Blackwood like?" The question slipped out before Lily could stop it. "I mean personally. To work with." Victoria's expression softened almost imperceptibly. "He's demanding, exacting. He expects perfection and doesn't tolerate mediocrity, but he's also fair. If you do excellent work, he'll recognize it. If you make a mistake, own it immediately and have a solution ready. Never make excuses. He detests excuses." "Got it. No excuses, only solutions." "Exactly." Victoria checked her watch. "He'll be here in 10 minutes. I suggest you start by familiarizing yourself with his calendar for today and pulling the files for his first meeting." Victoria left, and Lily threw herself into work. She logged into the system, opened the calendar, and felt her stomach drop. Alexander Blackwood had 9 meetings scheduled today, starting at 7:30 and ending at 7 p.m. with working lunch in between. Each meeting had associated files, documents, presentations that needed to be ready. Lily worked frantically, opening files, ensuring everything was uploaded to the correct systems, making sure presentations were ready to display. She was so focused that she didn't hear the elevator doors open or footsteps approaching. "You must be the new assistant." The voice was deep, smooth, with an edge of authority that made Lily's spine straighten instinctively. She looked up and forgot how to breathe. Alexander Blackwood stood in front of her desk, and he was nothing like Lily had expected. The business magazines had called him the Ice Prince, but they'd failed to mention that he looked like he'd stepped out of a cologne advertisement. Tall, easily over 6 feet, with dark hair that fell just slightly too long to be corporate standard. His suit was clearly custom-tailored, fitting his broad shoulders and lean frame perfectly. But it was his eyes that captured her. Deep blue, intelligent, intense, the kind of eyes that looked through you rather than at you. Yes, Lily stammered, standing quickly and nearly knocking over her coffee mug in the process. "Lily Morgan. I started today." His gaze moved to her face, to the veil, and lingered there for approximately half a second before returning to her eyes. No judgment, No visible discomfort, just acknowledgement and then immediate refocus on what actually mattered. "Victoria briefed you on today's schedule?" he asked, already moving toward his office. "Yes, sir." "Your first meeting is at 7:30 with the Henderson Group. I have all the files ready. Your coffee is on your desk, black in the white mug, and I've flagged the urgent emails that need your attention before the meeting." He paused mid-step, turning back to look at her with something that might have been surprise. "Efficient. Good. Hold all calls during meetings unless it's my sister Charlotte or Marcus Chen from the Singapore office." Then he was gone, disappearing into his office and closing the door behind him with a quiet click. Lily sat back down, her heart racing. That was it. No lengthy introduction, no awkward small talk, no questions about the veil or why she wore it. Just direct, efficient communication focused entirely on work. She could work with that. The rest of the morning passed in a blur. Alexander's first meeting ran over by 15 minutes, which meant Lily had to quickly reschedule the second meeting. A client called with an urgent issue that couldn't wait, so Lily had to interrupt Alexander's third meeting, which earned her a sharp look that made her stomach clench until he heard the issue and nodded his approval of her judgment. By noon, Lily felt like she'd run a marathon. Alexander emerged from his office at 12:30. "Lunch," he said simply. Lily looked up from the email she was drafting. "I'll order something for you. What would you like?" "I meant both of us. There's a working lunch with the Thompson merger team. You'll need to take notes. Come on." He was already walking toward the elevator. Lily grabbed her tablet and hurried to follow, trying to keep pace with his long strides. The restaurant was the kind of place where a single appetizer cost more than Lily used to spend on groceries for a week. The Thompson team was already seated, 3 men in suits that screamed old money and inherited privilege. Alexander didn't waste time on pleasantries. Within minutes, they were deep into discussion about merger terms, valuation models, risk assessments. Lily took notes on her tablet, her fingers flying across the screen, capturing every detail, every number, every commitment made. One of the Thompson team members, a man with silver hair and a condescending smile, turned to Lily. "Interesting fashion choice, my dear. The veil. Is it religious?" The question was designed to make her uncomfortable, to put her on the spot. Lily opened her mouth to respond, but Alexander beat her to it. "Miss Morgan's appearance is irrelevant to this discussion," he said, his voice cold enough to freeze fire. "Unless you have questions about the merger terms, I suggest we stay on topic." The silver-haired man flushed red and quickly looked away. The rest of the lunch proceeded without any further personal comments. As they walked back to the office, Lily worked up the courage to speak. "Thank you. For that, in the restaurant." Alexander glanced at her, his expression unreadable. "I didn't do it for you. I did it because personal comments in business meetings are a waste of time. We're here to work, not to discuss anyone's wardrobe choices." His words should have stung, but somehow they didn't, because he was right. He didn't care about the veil, didn't care what was underneath it, cared only about whether she could do the job. And Lily was determined to prove she could. The first 2 weeks at Blackwood Enterprises passed in an exhausting blur. Lily worked 12-hour days minimum, often staying late to ensure everything was perfect for the next morning. She learned Alexander's rhythms, his preferences, his moods. She discovered he was demanding but never cruel, exacting but fair. When she made a mistake scheduling conflict in his third week, she'd owned it immediately and presented 2 solutions. He'd chosen one without comment or reprimand. Victoria had been right. Alexander Blackwood didn't care what Lily looked like. He cared that his coffee was ready at 7 a.m., that his files were organized, that his meetings ran smoothly. The veil was as relevant to him as the color of her shoes. It was liberating in a way Lily hadn't expected. For the first time in years, she felt valued for her mind rather than judged for her appearance. But she was also exhausted. The pace was relentless. Some nights she came home so tired she fell asleep in her work clothes. Emma worried, but Lily insisted she was fine. Better than fine. She was proving herself. On a Friday evening, 3 weeks into the job, Lily was packing up her desk when Alexander emerged from his office. "Miss Morgan, a moment." Lily grabbed her tablet and followed him inside. His office was massive, with floor-to-ceiling windows offering a panoramic view of the city. The decor was minimalist, all clean lines and modern furniture, with a few pieces of abstract art that probably cost more than Lily would earn in 5 years. Alexander stood by the window, hands in his pockets, looking out at the city lights beginning to twinkle in the dusk. "You've been here 3 weeks," he said without turning around. "Yes, sir." "Victoria tells me you're the best assistant I've had in 2 years. The Henderson deal closed successfully in part because of your attention to detail. The Thompson merger is proceeding smoothly because you caught an error in their valuation model that would have cost us millions." Lily's heart swelled with pride, but she kept her voice professional. "I'm just doing my job. You're doing it exceptionally well." He turned to face her then, those intense blue eyes studying her. "I have a charity gala next Saturday. Black tie event. Tedious but necessary for maintaining relationships with donors and investors. I need you there." "Of course. I'll coordinate the logistics. You'll also need to attend. As my guest." Lily blinked. "Your guest?" "These events require socializing. Small talk. Remembering people's names and their pet projects. I'm terrible at all of it. You, however, have excellent people skills. I've watched you handle difficult clients and demanding board members. You know how to make people feel heard without making commitments we can't keep. Mr. Blackwood, I'm your assistant, not your date. It's not a date. It's a work assignment. You'll be compensated with overtime pay. Consider it networking on behalf of Blackwood Enterprises." He pulled out his wallet and extracted a black credit card. "You'll need a formal gown. Use this. Consider it a business expense." Lily stared at the card, her mind reeling. Attend a gala with Alexander Blackwood in a formal gown. She hesitated. "The veil. It might draw attention. People might talk. People always talk. Let them." His voice was matter of fact. "Anyone who has a problem with your appearance can take it up with me. You're an employee of Blackwood Enterprises representing this company. That's all that matters." The card sat in her palm, heavy with implications. This was wildly inappropriate. Bringing his assistant as his guest to a social event. The lines between professional and personal blurring in ways that made Lily nervous. But she also needed this job. Needed it desperately. And Alexander was right. It was a work assignment, not a date. "Yes, Mr. Blackwood," she said finally. "I'll be there." The next day, Lily found herself in the most expensive boutique she'd ever entered, feeling completely out of place. The sales associate, a woman named Genevieve with perfect hair and intimidating heels, had initially looked at Lily's veil with barely concealed skepticism. Then Lily had presented Alexander's black credit card, and Genevieve's entire attitude had shifted. "We have several options that would be perfect for a gala," Genevieve said, leading Lily through racks of gowns that cost more than Lily used to make in a month. "What's your preferred style?" "I have no idea," Lily admitted. "I've never been to anything like this before." Genevieve's eyes lit up with the challenge. For the next 2 hours, she pulled gowns, offering opinions, adjusting fits, creating combinations. Lily tried on what felt like 50 dresses before Genevieve brought out one that made her pause. Deep sapphire blue silk that seemed to shimmer with its own internal light. The design was elegant, sophisticated, with a fitted bodice and flowing skirt that moved like water, off-shoulder sleeves that framed her collarbones. The color made her brown eyes look almost golden. "That's it," Genevieve declared. "That's absolutely the one." Lily stared at her reflection in the three-way mirror. She looked beautiful. Even with the veil, even with the birthmark hidden beneath it. The gown transformed her from Lily Morgan, insecure assistant, into someone who belonged in ballrooms and galas. "I'll take it," she said, trying not to think about the price tag. The following Saturday, Lily spent 3 hours getting ready. She'd never worn anything this fancy before. The gown fit perfectly, the silk cool against her skin. She'd styled her long dark hair in loose waves, applied makeup to her eyes that made them pop, and chosen a veil in matching sapphire blue that complemented the dress. When she looked in the mirror, a stranger looked back. Someone confident. Someone who belonged in Alexander Blackwood's world. Alexander picked her up at 7, pulling up in a sleek black town car with a driver. When Lily emerged from her apartment building, she caught his expression shift for just a moment, something flickering across his face before his professional mask returned. "You look appropriate," he said as she slid into the car. Lily was beginning to understand that appropriate was Alexander speak. For impressed, the gala was held at the Metropolitan Museum of Art in a wing closed to the public for the evening. Lily stepped out of the car and felt immediately overwhelmed. Women in designer gowns dripping with jewels. Men in tuxedos that probably cost more than her rent. Champagne flowing freely, string quartet playing Vivaldi, the clink of crystal glasses and murmur of expensive conversation. Alexander offered her his arm. "Remember, you're here to work. Observe. Listen. Note anyone who makes commitments or mentions opportunities. And for God's sake, don't let me get cornered by Harold Morrison. He talks for hours about his golf game." Despite her nerves, Lily laughed. "I'll do my best." They entered together, and heads turned. Lily felt the stares, heard the whispers. Who is she? Is that Blackwood's new girlfriend? What's with the veil? Alexander seemed oblivious to it all, moving through the crowd with easy confidence, introducing Lily simply as "my assistant, Miss Morgan," and then smoothly transitioning into business conversations. Lily stayed close, mentally noting names, faces, commitments. When a silver-haired woman mentioned interest in sustainable energy investments, Lily made a note. When a tech CEO complained about regulatory challenges, Lily remembered it for later research. She was so focused on her job that she almost didn't notice when a woman in a red dress approached, her eyes fixed on Lily's veil with undisguised curiosity. "How mysterious," the woman said, her voice dripping with false sweetness. "The veil. Is it a fashion statement? Or are you hiding something scandalous?" The woman's words hung in the air, designed to embarrass, to expose. Lily felt her cheeks burn beneath the veil, her mind scrambling for a response that wouldn't make a scene. "It's personal," Lily said quietly, keeping her voice steady despite the trembling in her chest. "How intriguing," the woman continued, moving closer. She was older, perhaps 50, with the kind of wealth that showed in her flawless skin and perfect teeth. "You know, I've always found that people who hide their faces usually have something to be ashamed of." The comment was cruel and deliberate. Lily opened her mouth to respond, but Alexander's voice cut through the tension like a blade. "Mrs. Wellington, His tone was ice cold. I wasn't aware you'd become an expert in other people's personal choices. The woman, Mrs. Wellington apparently, turned with a smile that died when she saw Alexander's expression. Alexander, darling, I was just making conversation. No, you were being deliberately rude to my guest. Alexander moved closer to Lily, a subtle gesture of protection that didn't go unnoticed by the people nearby. Miss Morgan's appearance is her own business. If you have a problem with it, you're welcome to leave. In fact, I insist on it. Mrs. Wellington's face went pale, then red. I didn't mean to offend, and yet you did. Spectacularly. Alexander turned away, dismissing her completely. Come, Miss Morgan. I see someone I actually need to speak with. He guided Lily away, his hand lightly touching her elbow. Lily could feel her heart hammering, a mixture of embarrassment and gratitude churning in her stomach. When they were out of earshot, Alexander leaned down slightly. Are you all right? I'm fine. You didn't have to do that. Yes, I did. Mrs. Wellington is a miserable woman who delights in making others uncomfortable. Someone needed to tell her that behavior is unacceptable. He glanced at Lily. Besides, you work for me. An insult to you is an insult to my judgment in hiring you. It wasn't exactly personal defense, but somehow that made it mean more. He was defending her competence, her worth as an employee, not just her feelings. The rest of the evening passed more smoothly. Lily met dozens of people, collected business cards, made mental notes of conversations that might be useful later. Alexander was right. He was terrible at small talk, tending to redirect every conversation toward business within 30 seconds. But he was brilliant at reading people, knowing exactly what to say to make them feel important. Around 10 p.m., they stepped out onto a terrace overlooking the museum gardens. The night air was cool and refreshing after the crowded ballroom. You did well tonight, Alexander said, leaning against the stone railing. Made excellent connections. I saw you talking with Sarah Chen. She's the CFO of Horizon Tech. They're looking for investment partners. She mentioned it. Said they're developing new AI applications for healthcare. Sounded promising. It is. I've been trying to get a meeting with her for months. You managed it in 10 minutes of conversation. Lily smiled beneath the veil. She was impressed that you brought your assistant to a social event. Said it showed you valued staff as people, not just employees. Alexander made a sound that might have been a laugh. Interesting interpretation. I brought you because you're useful. That's romantic. This time he definitely laughed, a genuine sound of amusement. Romance is inefficient. Usefulness is timeless. You should put that on a greeting card. They stood in comfortable silence for a moment, looking out at the gardens below. Lily was acutely aware of Alexander's presence beside her, the clean scent of his cologne, the way the moonlight caught in his dark hair. Can I ask you something? Alexander said suddenly. That depends on the question. The veil. Victoria mentioned you wear it because of a birthmark, but you've never missed a day of work because of it. Never used it as an excuse for anything. So I'm curious, why do you hide it? Lily's breath caught. No one at work had ever asked her directly. They either stared and said nothing or avoided looking at her altogether. Because people are cruel, she said finally. Not everyone. Not even most people. But enough that it's easier to hide than to deal with constant stares and comments and children asking their parents what's wrong with that lady. That's their problem, not yours. It becomes my problem when it costs me jobs. When people judge my competence based on my appearance. When I'm fired for being too ugly. The words slipped out before she could stop them, bitter and raw. Alexander turned to look at her fully. Is that what happened at Sterling Communications? They fired you for being ugly? They said I failed to meet professional appearance standards. But yes, essentially I was too ugly for their image-conscious company. They're idiots. The statement was delivered with such matter-of-fact certainty that Lily almost laughed. Thank you for saying that. I'm not saying it to be nice. I'm saying it because it's objectively true. Intelligence, competence, work ethic, those are what matter. Everything else is noise created by shallow people with nothing of substance to offer. He paused, then continued in a quieter voice. I have a scar from a car accident when I was 17. Runs down my entire back. For years, I wouldn't go swimming or take my shirt off in front of anyone. Hid it like it was shameful. Lily hadn't known. Alexander always seemed so confident, so unshakable. What changed? She asked softly. I realized I was letting other people's potential reactions control my life. Their discomfort was their problem, not mine. I had a choice: hide or live fully. I chose to live fully. He looked at her. I'm not saying you should remove the veil. That's your choice, and it's a valid one. I'm just saying you shouldn't have to hide because other people are too weak to handle a birthmark. Lily's throat tightened with emotion. It's not that simple. Nothing important ever is. They returned to the gala shortly after, but Lily's mind kept replaying Alexander's words. You shouldn't have to hide because other people are too weak. The car ride home was quiet, both of them tired from the long evening. When they pulled up to Lily's apartment building, Alexander walked her to the door, a gesture that surprised her. Thank you for tonight, he said. You were an asset, as expected. Just doing my job, Mr. Blackwood. Alexander, when we're not in the office, you can call me Alexander. The use of his first name felt intimate in a way that made Lily's heart skip. Thank you, Alexander, for defending me and for what you said on the terrace. I meant every word. He held her gaze for a moment longer than necessary, then nodded. Good night, Miss Morgan. Lily, if you're Alexander, I'm Lily. A small smile touched his lips. Good night, Lily. She watched him return to the car and drive away, then practically floated up to her apartment. Emma, who'd been waiting up despite the late hour, took one look at Lily's face and grinned. Okay, spill. How was it? Lily collapsed onto the couch, still wearing the beautiful gown. It was complicated. Complicated good or complicated bad? I don't know yet. But as she got ready for bed, carefully hanging the gown and removing the veil, Lily couldn't stop thinking about Alexander's words. About living fully instead of hiding. About being valued for competence rather than appearance. In the bathroom mirror, she looked at her birthmark, the deep crimson stain that had defined so much of her life. For the first time in years, she wondered what it might be like to stop hiding it, to let people see her fully and deal with their reactions instead of preventing them. It was a terrifying thought, but also, maybe, a liberating one. The Monday after the gala, something had shifted between Lily and Alexander, though neither acknowledged it directly. He started asking her opinion on more than just logistics. When reviewing a marketing proposal, he turned to her. Thoughts? When considering a merger, he'd want her analysis, not just her notes. Lily found herself staying later not because she had to, but because the conversations were engaging, challenging. Alexander treated her like an equal intellectually, never condescending, never dismissive. One evening, a week after the gala, They were alone in the office going over projections for a potential acquisition. It was past 8 p.m., the city lights twinkling beyond the windows. "The numbers look good on paper," Lily said, reviewing the documents on her tablet. "But did you notice the employee retention rates? They've lost 30% of their senior staff in the past 18 months. Alexander looked up from his computer. "I did notice. What's your read on it?" "Either the company culture is toxic or they're bleeding talent to competitors. Either way, it's a red flag. Experienced employees are an asset. Losing them means losing institutional knowledge, client relationships, competitive advantage." "Exactly what I thought." Alexander leaned back in his chair. "The board wants this acquisition, but I think it's a mistake dressed up in attractive financial projections. What will you do?" "Tell them no. They won't be happy, but that's not my concern. My concern is making sound business decisions." Lily smiled. "That's why you're the CEO." "That's why I hired you, someone who sees beyond the surface." He paused, then added, "You're wasted as an assistant, you know. Your analytical skills are exceptional. Have you ever considered an MBA?" The question caught Lily off guard. "I've thought about it, but business school is expensive, and I'm helping my sister through college." Blackwood Enterprises has an educational assistance program. Employees pursuing advanced degrees get tuition reimbursement and flexible scheduling. Lily's heart skipped. "I didn't know that. Most people don't. They don't ask." Alexander pulled up something on his computer, then turned the screen toward her. "The program details. Think about it. No pressure, but you have the aptitude for strategy work, not just support work." That night, Lily couldn't sleep. An MBA? A real graduate degree that could open doors she'd thought were closed forever. She pulled out her laptop and researched programs, costs, and requirements. It was possible. Actually, possible. The next few weeks fell into a comfortable rhythm. Lily and Alexander worked seamlessly together, anticipating each other's needs, finishing each other's thoughts and meetings. Victoria commented on it one afternoon, stopping by Lily's desk with a rare smile. "You're good for him," Victoria said. "Mr. Blackwood has had a dozen assistants in the past 3 years. None lasted more than 6 months. You've been here 2 months, and he's actually calmer, less likely to terrify junior staff." Lily laughed. "I don't know if I'd call him calm. You haven't seen him truly stressed. Trust me, this is calm for him." Victoria's expression grew more serious. "Whatever you're doing, keep doing it. The office runs better when he's not in a perpetually foul mood." But the peace didn't last. On a Friday afternoon, Lily was coordinating with the legal department when she overheard raised voices from inside Alexander's office. The door was slightly ajar, and though she knew she shouldn't listen, the words drifted out clearly. "You need to reconsider your assistant." The voice belonged to Robert Chen, one of the senior board members. "The Vale situation is causing problems." Lily's blood ran cold. "What problems?" Alexander's voice was dangerously quiet. "Clients are uncomfortable. They can't see her face. It's unsettling. And frankly, it reflects poorly on the company. We have standards, Alexander. Image matters." "Image matters," Alexander repeated, his tone now glacial. "Tell me, Robert, does Miss Morgan's work performance meet standards?" "That's not the point." "It's exactly the point. Since she started, my schedule runs more efficiently. She's caught errors that would have cost us millions. She's made connections with potential clients and investors that I've been trying to court for months. Her work is exemplary. So I ask again, what's the actual problem?" "The problem is optics. This is a business built on trust and relationships. How can people trust someone whose face they can't even see?" Lily heard footsteps. Then Alexander's voice, colder than she'd ever heard it. Let me be absolutely clear. Miss Morgan's employment is not up for debate. Her appearance is irrelevant. If you or anyone else on this board has a problem with that, you're welcome to tender your resignation. But you will not question my hiring decisions based on superficial prejudice. Alexander, be reasonable. I am being reasonable. You're being discriminatory. This conversation is over. Get out of my office. Silence, then footsteps approaching the door. Lily quickly moved back to her desk, pretending to be absorbed in her work. Robert Chen emerged, his face red with anger, and stalked toward the elevator without acknowledging her. Alexander appeared in his doorway moments later. Lily, come in, please. She grabbed her tablet and entered his office, her heart pounding. He stood by the window, hands in his pockets, tension evident in the line of his shoulders. I apologize, he said without turning around. That conversation was inappropriate, and you shouldn't have been subjected to it. I wasn't meant to hear it. But you did. He turned to face her. For the record, your position here is secure. The board can voice whatever opinions they want, but hiring and firing decisions are mine alone. You've proven yourself invaluable. That's all that matters. Lily's throat tightened with emotion. Thank you. That means more than you know. You don't need to thank me for basic fairness. He moved to his desk, suddenly looking tired. Though I'd understand if you wanted to look for a position somewhere less contentious. Are you trying to get rid of me? God, no. You're the best assistant I've ever had. But I also won't blame you if dealing with this prejudice isn't worth the salary. Lily thought about sterling communications, about being fired for her appearance, about the years of hiding, of shame, of letting other people's comfort matter more than her own dignity. I'm not going anywhere, she said firmly. If they have a problem with my veil, that's their problem. I'm doing excellent work, and I'm not going to let small-minded people drive me out of a job I'm good at. Alexander's expression shifted, something like approval and respect crossing his features. Good, because I'd hate to lose you. The rest of the day was tense, but Alexander's defense of her had sparked something in Lily, a defiance she hadn't felt in years. That evening, as she was packing up, Alexander stopped by her desk. Drink? He asked. I could use one after today, and I suspect you could too. It was wildly inappropriate, boss and assistant getting drinks together. But Lily found she didn't care. Yes, I could definitely use a drink. They went to a quiet bar a few blocks away, nothing fancy, just dim lighting and good whiskey. Alexander ordered a double scotch. Lily got a glass of wine that probably cost more than her first apartment's monthly rent. To surviving Friday, Alexander said, raising his glass. To surviving Friday, Lily echoed. They sat in companionable silence for a moment, the stress of the day slowly unwinding. Can I ask you something? Lily said finally. Always. Why do you care? About the veil thing, you could have just let the board pressure you into firing me. Found someone else. But you defended me. Why? Alexander considered the question, swirling the scotch in his glass. Because it's wrong, simple as that. You're brilliant, hardworking, and exceptionally competent. Firing you because some board members are uncomfortable with a piece of fabric would be both morally reprehensible and phenomenally stupid from a business perspective. That's very practical. I'm a practical person. He paused. But there's more to it than that. I've spent my entire career being told I'm too young, too aggressive, too unconventional. People judged me before I proved myself. I built Blackwood Enterprises anyway, despite their doubts. When I see someone else being judged on surface-level nonsense instead of merit, It pisses me off. Lily smiled. You're more idealistic than you pretend to be. Don't tell anyone. It would ruin my reputation as a heartless businessman. They talked for another hour, conversation flowing easily. Alexander told her about building his company from nothing, about the early failures that nearly bankrupted him. Lily shared stories about growing up with Emma, about their mother who died when Lily was 19, leaving her to raise her teenage sister alone. That's why you work so hard, Alexander said. Emma's college tuition. Partly, but also because I love what I do. Creating systems, solving problems, making things run smoothly. It's satisfying. That's how I feel about investments. The analysis, the risk assessment, the satisfaction when a calculated gamble pays off. He looked at her. We're similar in that way. We both find meaning in work. Is that a compliment or an observation? Both. When they finally left the bar, the city was quiet, streetlights casting long shadows. Alexander insisted on calling a car to take Lily home, despite her protests that she could take the subway. It's late, he said. Humor me. In the back of the car, Lily found herself acutely aware of Alexander's presence beside her, the subtle scent of his cologne, the warmth radiating from him in the cool night air. When they reached her building, he walked her to the door again. Thank you, Lily said, for the drinks, for listening, for everything today. Thank you for staying, for not letting them drive you away. They stood there for a moment, close enough that Lily could see the flecks of gray in his blue eyes. Good night, Lily. Good night, Alexander. She watched him return to the car, her heart doing complicated things in her chest. This was dangerous territory. Boss and employee, professional lines blurring into something else. But as she got ready for bed, Lily couldn't bring herself to regret it. The following weeks brought an unexpected complication. Lily was developing feelings for Alexander that went far beyond professional respect. She tried to ignore it, to maintain appropriate boundaries, but it was becoming increasingly difficult. The way he listened when she spoke, truly listened like her opinions mattered, the way he defended her without hesitation, the way his rare smiles made her heart skip beats, the way his hand would brush hers when passing documents, lingering just slightly too long to be accidental. She told herself she was imagining things, reading too much into professional courtesy. But the tension between them was undeniable, crackling in the air during late-night work sessions, building with every shared glance and almost touch. Emma noticed immediately when Lily came home one Friday evening. Okay, what's going on with you and your boss? Emma demanded, sprawled on Lily's couch with Chinese takeout. Nothing's going on. He's my employer. I'm his assistant. You're also blushing just talking about him. Spill. Lily collapsed next to her sister. I don't know, Em. Maybe I'm developing feelings I shouldn't have, but it's complicated. He's my boss. There's a power dynamic. And even if there wasn't, he's Alexander Blackwood, billionaire CEO. Why would he be interested in his assistant? Because you're brilliant? Because you're funny and kind and you probably run his entire life? Because despite that veil you insist on wearing, you're beautiful? I'm serious, Lily. When are you going to see yourself the way other people see you? Yes, you have a birthmark. So what? It doesn't define you. Your intelligence defines you. Your compassion defines you. The way you've sacrificed everything to take care of me defines you. Emma grabbed her sister's hand. Maybe it's time to stop hiding. That night, Lily stood in front of her bathroom mirror and slowly untied her veil. The birthmark stared back at her, familiar and permanent. She traced its edges with her fingers, following the crimson path across her cheek and jaw. What would Alexander think if he saw it? Would his respect evaporate? Would he look at her differently? But even as the questions formed, Lily knew they were rooted in old fears, old hurts. Alexander wasn't like the people who'd mocked her as a child or fired her from Sterling Communications. He'd proven that over and over. Still, knowing and believing were different things. On Monday morning, Lily arrived at work to find chaos. A major deal was falling apart, a key investor was threatening to pull out, and Alexander was in back-to-back emergency meetings trying to salvage the situation. Lily worked like she'd never worked before. She coordinated between departments, drafted damage control statements, rescheduled meetings, and managed communications with increasingly panicked stakeholders. By 3 p.m., she'd put out 6 fires and prevented at least 3 more. Alexander emerged from his office looking exhausted, his usually perfect hair disheveled, his tie loosened. "Status?" he asked, his voice hoarse. "Investor agreed to a call tomorrow morning. Legal is reviewing the revised terms now. I've drafted 3 versions of the press release depending on how we proceed. And I ordered food because I know you haven't eaten." Right on cue, delivery arrived. Lily had ordered from the Thai place Alexander liked when he was stressed, his usual order plus spring rolls. Alexander stared at the food, then at her. "How did you—" "You always get Thai when you're stressed. Pad ki mao, extra vegetables, spring rolls on the side. I've been paying attention for 3 months." Something shifted in his expression, softening. "You're terrifying sometimes, you know that?" "I prefer efficient." "That too." He sat at his desk, opening the containers. "Eat with me. You've been working just as hard." Lily hesitated, then grabbed her own lunch and sat in the chair across from him. They ate in comfortable silence, the kind that only comes when people have spent enough time together to not need constant conversation. "Thank you," Alexander said finally. "For today. For every day, honestly. I don't think I've properly acknowledged how much easier you've made my life. Just doing my job. You do far more than your job. You anticipate problems I haven't thought of yet. You handle crises before they become catastrophes. You make me look competent when I'm barely holding it together." Lily smiled. "You're always competent." "Not without you, I'm not." He set down his fork and looked at her directly. "Lily, I need to tell you something. And you can absolutely say no, and it won't affect your job, I swear. But I'd regret it forever if I didn't say this." Her heart started racing. "Say what?" "I have feelings for you. Real feelings that have nothing to do with our professional relationship. I know it's inappropriate. I know I'm your boss, and there's a power dynamic and 100 reasons why this is a terrible idea. But I also can't keep pretending I see you as just my assistant, because you're so much more than that." Lily couldn't breathe, couldn't think. Alexander Blackwood had feelings for her. "Alexander, you don't have to say anything right now," he continued quickly. "I just needed you to know, needed to be honest. If you want to keep things strictly professional, I understand. If you want to transfer to a different position so there's no conflict of interest, I'll make it happen. But if there's any chance you feel the same way, I'd like to explore what this could be." Lily's mind raced. This was insane, dangerous, could end her career if it went wrong, but she also couldn't deny what she felt. "I feel the same way," she said softly. "I've been trying not to, trying to maintain boundaries, but I can't help it. You're brilliant and driven, and you defended me when no one else would. You made me feel valued in a way I've never experienced before." Alexander's face transformed, tension releasing into something that looked like joy. Really? Really. But Alexander, this is complicated. You're my boss. If anyone finds out, then we'll deal with it. Together. He stood, moving around the desk to where she sat. Lily, I don't care what people think. I don't care about office politics or appearances. I care about you. He reached for her hand, and Lily let him take it. His fingers intertwined with hers, warm and solid. We should take this slow, Lily said, even as her heart hammered. Keep it private for now. Figure out how this works before we tell anyone. Agreed. Slow. Private. Professional at the office. He squeezed her hand gently. But outside the office. Outside the office, we can figure out what this is. Their first real date was the following Saturday. Alexander picked her up at 7, dressed casually in jeans and a dark blue sweater that made his eyes impossibly brighter. Lily wore a simple black dress and, as always, her veil. They went to a small Italian restaurant in Brooklyn, far from Manhattan's business district where they might run into colleagues. The restaurant was intimate, with checkered tablecloths and candles flickering in wine bottles. No work talk tonight, Alexander said as they were seated. That's the rule for actual dates. Then what do we talk about? We spend 40 hours a week together. What else is there? That's what we're here to discover. It should have been awkward. Instead, it was perfect. They talked about books Alexander read, thriller novels, which Lily found hilarious, about movies, about travel, about dreams they'd set aside for practicality. I've always wanted to learn to sail, Alexander admitted. Proper sailing, not just steering a yacht with a motor. There's something appealing about working with the wind, the skill required. I always wanted to see the northern lights, Lily said. The way they dance across the sky, it seems magical. Then we should go. Norway or Iceland? We? When you talk about the future, you mean with someone, right? Same principle. Lily's heart swelled. He was already imagining a future where they did things together. The evening flew by. They lingered over tiramisu, neither wanting the night to end. When Alexander finally drove her home, he walked her to the door. I had a great time, he said. Best first date I've ever had. Me too. They stood there, close enough that Lily could feel the warmth radiating from him. Alexander reached up slowly, giving her time to pull away, and gently touched the edge of her veil. Can I see you? He asked softly. Your face, I mean. You don't have to. But I'd like to see all of you. Lily's breath caught. This was it. The moment she'd been dreading and anticipating in equal measure. Her hands trembled as she reached up to untie the veil. It's not pretty, she warned. The birthmark. It's, significant. Lily, I don't care about pretty. I care about you. Slowly, she let the veil fall away. The cool night air touched her face, and for the first time in 5 years, someone she cared about was seeing her fully. Alexander was quiet for a moment, his eyes taking in the port wine stain that covered her right cheek and jaw. Lily held her breath, waiting for his expression to change, for the inevitable flicker of discomfort or pity. Instead, he smiled. Not a polite smile. A genuine, warm smile that reached his eyes. Beautiful, he said softly. Lily's breath caught in her throat. You don't have to say that. I'm not saying it to be nice. I'm saying it because it's true. Alexander's hand came up to gently touch her cheek, his fingers tracing the edge of the birthmark with a tenderness that made her eyes sting with tears. You're beautiful, Lily, with or without the veil. This, he touched the crimson mark gently, is just part of you. It doesn't make you less. If anything, it makes you more interesting. More you. A tear slipped down Lily's cheek. People have called me a monster, a freak. They've stared and pitied and looked away in disgust. Then they were idiots who couldn't see past surface appearance to the incredible person underneath. Alexander leaned closer, his thumb wiping away her tear. I see you, Lily. All of you. And you're stunning. Alexander. He kissed her. Soft and gentle, his lips barely brushing hers, giving her every opportunity to pull away. But Lily found herself leaning into the kiss instead, her hands coming up to rest against his chest, feeling his heartbeat racing beneath her palms. When they finally pulled apart, both slightly breathless, Alexander rested his forehead against hers. I've wanted to do that for weeks, he admitted. Me too. They stood there for a long moment, the city quiet around them, before Lily finally stepped back. I should go inside. It's late. Will you wear the veil tomorrow? At work? Lily hesitated. Yes. I think so. This is still new. I'm not ready for everyone to see yet. Whatever makes you comfortable. Just know that when you are ready, I'll be right there with you. That night, Lily lay in bed replaying the kiss over and over. Alexander had seen her face, the birthmark she'd hidden for 5 years, and he'd called her beautiful. She touched her lips, still feeling the ghost of his kiss. Her phone buzzed, a text from Alexander. Thank you for tonight, for trusting me, for being you. Sleep well. Lily smiled, her heart full. She texted back, thank you for seeing me, really seeing me. Good night, Alexander. The following weeks were the happiest of Lily's life. At work, they maintained strict professionalism. But outside the office, they explored this new thing growing between them. Quiet dinners, long walks through the city, movie nights at Lily's apartment where they'd fall asleep on the couch, Lily's head on Alexander's shoulder. Lily started wearing the veil less when they were alone together. Sometimes she'd forget to put it back on after dinner, and Alexander would smile, telling her how much he loved seeing her full face. You have the most expressive eyes, he said one evening, both of them curled up on her couch. But I never realized how much your smile lights up your whole face. I was missing half of it behind that veil. You don't mind the birthmark? Really? Lily, I'm going to keep saying this until you believe it. The birthmark is just a part of your face. Like my eyes are blue or my hair is dark. It's a characteristic, not a flaw. He traced the crimson mark gently. Besides, it's shaped like a rose. Your mother was right. Lily's heart swelled. She'd told him that story weeks ago about her mother calling it a rose. The fact that he remembered, that he saw it the same way, meant everything. At work, they were careful. No one knew about their relationship. To the office, Lily was still just Alexander's exceptionally competent assistant. But Victoria suspected something. She'd started giving Lily knowing looks and making comments about how much happier Mr. Blackwood seemed lately. Whatever you're doing, Victoria said one afternoon, keep it up. The man actually smiled at a board meeting yesterday. Smiled. I nearly had a heart attack. Lily just smiled and said nothing. But their carefully maintained secret was about to be tested. A major industry conference was coming up in Boston. 3 days of networking, presentations, and meetings. Alexander needed to attend, and as his assistant, so did Lily. Separate hotel rooms, Alexander said when discussing logistics. We have to maintain appearances. I know. Professional at the conference. Private time is private. The conference started smoothly. During the day, they were all business. Alexander gave presentations, Lily took notes and managed his schedule. But in the evenings, they'd slip away to quiet restaurants or walk along the harbor, stealing time together away from watchful eyes. On the second night, they were having dinner at a waterfront restaurant when Lily noticed a familiar face across the room. Jessica Palmer from Sterling Communications, the woman who'd fired her 3 months ago. Lily's breath caught. Instinctively, her hand went to her veil, making sure it was securely in place. Alexander noticed immediately. "What's wrong?" "My former boss, from Sterling. She's here." Alexander's expression hardened. "The one who fired you for your appearance?" "Yes." "Want to leave?" Lily thought about it. Part of her wanted to run, to avoid any confrontation. But another part, the part that had grown stronger these past months with Alexander's support, rebelled against that instinct. "No," she said firmly. "I have every right to be here. She doesn't get to chase me away." Alexander's smile was proud. "That's my girl." They finished their dinner, and Lily did her best to ignore Jessica's presence. But as they were leaving, Jessica approached their table, her expression one of barely concealed surprise. "Lily Morgan?" Jessica said, her voice dripping with false pleasantness. "What a surprise seeing you here. Still hiding behind that veil, I see." Lily stood slowly, drawing herself up to her full height. "Hello, Jessica. Yes, I'm still wearing my veil. By choice, not because anyone's forcing me to change who I am." Jessica's eyes flickered to Alexander, clearly trying to assess who he was. "And you found new employment. How nice." "I work for Blackwood Enterprises now," Lily said, her voice steady and confident, "as the executive assistant to the CEO." Recognition dawned in Jessica's eyes as she looked at Alexander more carefully. "You're Alexander Blackwood." "I am," Alexander said, his voice cold enough to freeze fire. "And you're Jessica Palmer from Sterling Communications. Lily's mentioned you." Jessica's fake smile faltered. "Has she?" "I hope she explained that her departure was simply a matter of company standards." "She explained that you fired her because of her veil. Because you were more concerned with appearance than competence. That you let one of the most talented employees your company ever had walk out the door over prejudice and shallow thinking." Jessica's face went white, then red. "Now see here." "No, you see here," Alexander continued, his voice quiet but carrying unmistakable authority. "Lily has been with my company for 3 months. In that time, she saved us from a disastrous merger, caught errors that would have cost millions, and improved operational efficiency by 30%. She's brilliant, dedicated, and exactly the kind of employee any company should fight to keep. Sterling Communications' loss was my gain." He stood, placing a hand on the small of Lily's back. "Now, if you'll excuse us, we have better things to do than waste time on people who can't recognize talent when it's standing right in front of them." They walked out together, leaving Jessica standing speechless. Once they were outside, Lily let out a breath she didn't know she'd been holding. "You didn't have to do that," she said, though her voice was thick with emotion. "Yes, I did. That woman hurt you, made you feel less than what you are. Someone needed to tell her exactly how wrong she was." Lily turned to face him, tears in her eyes. "Thank you for defending me, for seeing my worth when others couldn't." "Lily," Alexander said gently, cupping her face in his hands, "I'll always defend you, always see your worth, because you're not just valuable to my company, you're valuable to me." He kissed her then, right there on the Boston waterfront, not caring who might see. When they returned to New York after the conference, something had changed. Lily felt stronger, more confident. The encounter with Jessica had been difficult, but she'd faced it without falling apart, and Alexander had been right there beside her. On Monday morning, Lily arrived at work and sat at her desk as usual. But instead of immediately diving into emails, she sat there for a moment, thinking. She'd been hiding behind the veil for 5 years. 5 years of letting other people's discomfort dictate her choices. 5 years of shame over something she'd been born with, something she couldn't change. But Alexander was right. The people who judged her for her birthmark weren't worth her energy. And the people who mattered, Emma, Alexander, Victoria, even some of the other colleagues who'd gotten to know her, they saw past the veil to who she really was. Maybe it was time to stop hiding. Her hands trembled as she reached up and slowly untied the veil. The silk fell away, and for the first time in 5 years, Lily Morgan sat at her desk with her full face visible. She waited for the panic to hit, for the instinct to cover up again, but instead, she felt something else. Liberation. Like she'd been carrying a weight she didn't realize was there until it was gone. Victoria was the first to notice when she arrived at 8 a.m. She stopped mid-step, her eyes widening slightly as she took in Lily's face, the port wine stain now visible for everyone to see. Then Victoria smiled. "Good morning, Miss Morgan. You look lovely today." Simple. Direct. No big deal. Just an acknowledgement and a compliment. "Thank you," Lily said, her voice steady. Other employees began arriving. Some did double takes. A few stared for longer than was polite, but others simply nodded good morning and went about their business, as if nothing had changed. Because really, nothing had changed. Lily was still the same person, doing the same excellent work. The only difference was that she'd stopped hiding a part of herself. At 7:30, Alexander's elevator arrived. He stepped out, already reviewing something on his phone, and started walking toward his office. Then he looked up and froze. Alexander stood completely still, his phone forgotten in his hand, staring at Lily with an expression she couldn't quite read. For a heart-stopping moment, Lily wondered if she'd made a terrible mistake. If seeing the birthmark in broad office lighting was different than seeing it by candlelight at restaurants. Then his face broke into the most genuine smile she'd ever seen from him. He crossed to her desk in 3 long strides. "Lily," he said softly, his voice thick with emotion, "you're not wearing the veil." "I decided it was time to stop hiding," she said, trying to sound more confident than she felt. "I can put it back on if it's inappropriate for the office." "Don't you dare." Alexander's voice was fierce. "You look absolutely radiant. I'm so proud of you." Around them, several employees had stopped to watch the exchange. Alexander seemed to realize they had an audience and cleared his throat, stepping back slightly. "Good morning, Miss Morgan," he said, his voice returning to its usual professional tone, though his eyes still shone with warmth. "I'll need the quarterly reports in my office in 15 minutes. "Of course, Mr. Blackwood." He disappeared into his office, and Lily released a breath. The hardest part was over. She'd done it. The day proceeded normally, or as normally as Lily's first day without the veil could be. Some people stared. A few made awkward comments, but most treated her exactly as they always had, because her work spoke for itself. At lunch, Victoria stopped by Lily's desk. "I owe you an apology," she said. Lily looked up in surprise. "For what?" "When you first interviewed, I noticed the veil but said nothing about it. I should have told you then that you never needed to hide here, that Blackwood Enterprises values competence over appearance. I let you think you had to keep wearing it to be accepted. Victoria, you gave me a job when I desperately needed one. You don't owe me any apologies. Still, for what it's worth, you're braver than most people I know, Taking off that veil took courage. I respect that. That afternoon, Lily had a meeting with several department heads to coordinate an upcoming project. She walked into the conference room with her head high, the birthmark fully visible. A few people did double takes, but the meeting proceeded smoothly. By the end, they were so focused on work that no one seemed to notice her face at all. It was exactly what she'd hoped for. Acknowledgement, and then moving on to what actually mattered. That evening, after most employees had left, Alexander emerged from his office and sat on the edge of Lily's desk. "How are you feeling?" he asked. "First day, without the veil." "Surprisingly okay," Lily admitted. "A few stares, but mostly people just didn't care. They were more interested in getting their work done. Because that's what matters here. Work. Results. Not what anyone looks like." He glanced around to make sure they were alone, then added quietly, "Have I mentioned today how beautiful you are?" Lily smiled. "You might have implied it this morning." "Let me be explicit then. You're stunning, Lily Morgan, and I'm incredibly proud of you for being brave enough to show the world who you really are." "I'm still scared," she admitted. "Scared that someone will say something cruel. Scared that I'll lose this confidence I've built. Then I'll remind you every day how remarkable you are, until you believe it so deeply that no one can ever make you doubt it again." The following weeks tested that promise. Not everyone at Blackwood Enterprises was as accepting as Victoria or Alexander. One senior analyst made a comment about Lily's disfigurement in a meeting. Alexander had him reassigned to a different department within the hour. A client visiting the office asked if Lily had been in an accident. Lily calmly explained it was a birthmark and redirected the conversation to business. Each incident stung, but Lily found herself recovering faster each time. And Alexander was always there, a steady presence of support and validation. Their relationship deepened as well. They were still careful at the office, but their private time together became increasingly important to both of them. Alexander met Emma, who immediately loved him and spent an entire dinner telling embarrassing stories about Lily's childhood. Lily met Alexander's sister Charlotte, who welcomed her warmly, and later pulled Alexander aside to tell him he'd better not screw this up. 3 months after Lily removed the veil, Alexander asked her to move in with him. They were having dinner at her apartment, sprawled on the couch after eating Thai food from containers. "Your lease is up next month," Alexander said casually. "Move in with me." Lily nearly choked on her noodles. "Move in with you?" "I have a penthouse with far too much space for one person. You spend most nights there anyway. Your toothbrush is already in my bathroom. It makes sense practically." "That's very romantic," the practical argument. "Fine. I want to wake up next to you every morning. I want to come home to you every evening. I want our lives to be fully intertwined, not just during dates and sleepovers. I want you there because I love you." Lily froze. "You love me?" Alexander set down his food, suddenly serious. "Yes, I love you. I've been in love with you for months, probably since you fixed my terrible coffee order without being asked and caught that error in the Henderson proposal. You're brilliant and strong and kind, and you make me want to be better. So yes." "Lily Morgan, I love you." Tears streamed down Lily's face, but she was smiling. "I love you too. Have for a while now. I was just too scared to say it first." "Then say it now." "I love you, Alexander Blackwood, and yes, I'll move in with you." He pulled her into a kiss that tasted like Thai food and happiness. Moving in together meant navigating new challenges. They had to be more careful about keeping their relationship private at work, though Lily suspected more people knew than they admitted. They had to figure out how to share space, to compromise on things like Alexander's obsessive organization and Lily's habit of leaving coffee mugs everywhere. But they also got to build a life together. Lazy Sunday mornings, reading newspapers in bed, cooking dinner together, which usually resulted in Alexander ordering takeout after their attempts at following recipes failed spectacularly. Movie nights where they'd fall asleep tangled together on the couch. At work, Lily thrived. Alexander had encouraged her to apply for the MBA program, and she'd been accepted. She was taking evening classes while continuing to work, and her analytical skills were becoming even sharper. Alexander started including her in strategy meetings, not as his assistant, but as a valued advisor. "You should consider a promotion," Victoria said one afternoon, stopping by Lily's desk. "You've outgrown the assistant role. You're doing the work of a senior strategist already." "I like working directly with Alexander," Lily said. "I'm learning so much from him." Victoria gave her a knowing look. "I'm sure you're learning a great deal. But Lily, you're too talented to stay in a support role forever, and I suspect Mr. Blackwood knows that too." That evening, Lily brought it up with Alexander over dinner. "Victoria thinks I should consider a promotion, move into a strategy role." Alexander set down his fork. "She's right, you should. But I like being your assistant. And I like having you as my assistant. But Victoria's right. You've outgrown the role. You're doing director-level work. You should be compensated and titled appropriately." "What if I like working directly with you? What if I don't want to move to a different department?" Alexander smiled. "Who said anything about a different department? I'm creating a new position. Director of Strategic Analysis, reporting directly to the CEO. You'd still work with me every day, but you'd be leading projects, managing teams, doing the work you're actually qualified for." "Alexander, you can't just create a position for me. People will talk. People always talk. And this isn't favoritism. It's recognizing exceptional talent and placing it where it can have the most impact. You've earned this, Lily. Whether you're sleeping in my bed or not, you've proven yourself invaluable to this company." Tears pricked at Lily's eyes again. "You really mean that?" "I've never meant anything more." The promotion was announced 2 weeks later. There were some raised eyebrows and whispered conversations, but Lily's work spoke for itself. Within a month, she'd restructured 2 underperforming departments and identified a market opportunity that led to a major new investment. On Lily's 1-year anniversary at Blackwood Enterprises, Alexander took her back to the same Italian restaurant in Brooklyn, where they'd had their first date. "A year ago, you walked into my office for an interview," Alexander said over wine and pasta. "You were wearing a veil and trying to hide how desperate you were for the job. I remember. I thought you'd take one look at me and send me away. Instead, I saw someone brilliant and determined, someone who'd been treated unfairly by people who couldn't see past surface appearances." He reached across the table and took her hand. "This year with you has been the best year of my life. You've made me better, Lily. Not just as a CEO, but as a person. You've made me better too. You taught me that I don't have to hide, that I'm worthy of respect and love exactly as I am." Alexander stood up and moved around the table. Then, to Lily's absolute shock, he knelt down beside her chair. "Lily Morgan," he said, pulling a small velvet box from his pocket. "A year ago, you trusted me enough to work for me. 6 months ago, you trusted me enough to show me your face. 3 months ago, you trusted me enough to move in with me. Will you trust me enough to spend the rest of your life with me?" He opened the box, revealing a ring that took Lily's breath away. Not ostentatious, but elegant and beautiful, with a sapphire the exact shade of her dress from the first gala they'd attended together. "Marry me," Alexander said. "Not because it makes sense professionally or practically. Marry me because I love you with everything I am. Because you're my partner in every sense of the word. Because I can't imagine my life without you in it." Lily was crying openly now, no longer caring who saw. "Yes. God, yes, I'll marry you." He slipped the ring onto her finger and stood, pulling her into his arms and kissing her like his life depended on it. Around them, the other restaurant patrons burst into applause. "I love you," Lily whispered against his lips. "I love you so much." "I love you too. Always." The engagement brought unexpected challenges. The business press got wind of it within days. Alexander Blackwood, billionaire CEO, engaged to his former assistant. The headlines ranged from genuinely sweet to obnoxiously speculative. Cinderella story: Blackwood finds love in the office. Power couple: how Lily Morgan went from assistant to fiancée. The woman who captured the Ice Prince's heart. And the worst one: Beneath the Veil, the real story of Alexander Blackwood's unusual romance. That last headline made Lily's blood boil. She'd long since stopped wearing the veil, but apparently the media couldn't resist making her. Birthmark part of the story. "Ignore it," Alexander said, tossing the tabloid in the trash. "They're desperate for controversy where none exists. We're just two people who fell in love. End of story." "But they're making it sound like some fairy tale where you saved me. Like I'm only successful because you rescued me." "Anyone with eyes can see that's garbage. You were brilliant before you met me. You'll be brilliant long after. I didn't save you, Lily. If anything, you saved me from a life where work was the only thing that mattered." Emma had a more direct response to the press coverage. She started an Instagram account dedicated to correcting the narrative, posting photos of Lily's achievements, her degrees, her campaign work from before she even met Alexander. Within a week, Emma had garnered 50,000 followers and started a movement about recognizing women's accomplishments independent of their relationships. "Your sister is terrifying," Alexander said admiringly after Emma's account went viral. "Remind me to hire her for PR when she graduates." The wedding planning began in earnest. Lily wanted something small and intimate, just close friends and family. Alexander, surprisingly, agreed. They chose a small vineyard upstate for the ceremony, scheduled for early fall when the leaves would be changing colors. Charlotte, Alexander's sister, insisted on throwing Lily a bridal shower. It was a small gathering at Charlotte's apartment. Emma, Victoria, a few colleagues from Blackwood Enterprises, and Charlotte's friends. "Speech! Speech!" Emma called out after presents had been opened. Lily stood, glass of champagne in hand, looking at the women who'd become her support system over the past year. "A year and a half ago, I was fired from my job for wearing a veil, for hiding a birthmark that I'd been ashamed of my entire life. I thought my career was over. I thought I'd never find a place where I was valued for my mind instead of judged for my appearance." She paused, emotion threatening to overwhelm her. "Then I walked into Blackwood Enterprises and met Victoria, who gave me a chance without judgment. And Alexander, who saw me, really saw me, in a way no one else ever had. You've all taught me that I'm worthy of respect and love, that my birthmark doesn't define me, my character and capabilities do." Victoria raised her glass. "To Lily, the bravest woman I know." "To Lily!" everyone echoed. That night, lying in bed with Alexander, Lily felt overwhelmed with gratitude. "Thank you. she whispered into the darkness. For what? For seeing me. For loving me. For helping me see myself the way you see me. Alexander pulled her closer. Lily, you did that yourself. I just pointed out what was already there. Your strength, your brilliance, your beauty. You've always had those things. You just needed to believe in them. The week before the wedding, Robert Chen, the board member who'd once pressured Alexander to fire Lily, resigned from Blackwood Enterprises. He'd been caught embezzling funds, a discovery that Lily had been instrumental in uncovering during a routine audit. Karma, Emma declared when she heard. That's what he gets for being a prejudiced jerk. It's not karma, it's justice, Lily corrected. He committed crimes. That's why he's facing consequences, not because he was rude to me. Can it be both? Emma grinned. The wedding day arrived with perfect autumn weather. The vineyard was stunning, leaves in shades of red and gold, the sun casting warm light over everything. Lily wore a simple ivory gown with lace sleeves, her hair styled in loose waves, her face fully visible, birthmark and all. Emma was her maid of honor, wearing a dress in deep burgundy that complemented the autumn palette. As they stood together in the bridal suite, Emma started crying. I'm so proud of you, Emma said, mascara already running. Look at you. You're getting married to an incredible man who loves you exactly as you are. You're successful and confident, and you stopped hiding. You did that, Lily. You did all of that. We did it together, Lily corrected, hugging her sister. I couldn't have survived without you believing in me all those years. The ceremony was held outdoors, chairs arranged in neat rows facing an arch covered in autumn flowers. Lily walked down the aisle alone, no one to give her away because she belonged to herself and was choosing to share her life with Alexander. When she reached the arch and saw Alexander waiting there, looking devastatingly handsome in his tuxedo, his eyes shining with love, Lily felt her heart swell to bursting. The officiant, an old friend of Alexander's, began. We're gathered here today to witness the union of two extraordinary people. Alexander and Lily's love story is one of seeing past surfaces to what truly matters, of recognizing worth when others couldn't, of choosing courage over fear. They'd written their own vows. Alexander went first, his voice steady despite the emotion in his eyes. Lily, when you walked into my office a year and a half ago, I had no idea my life was about to change completely. You challenged me, supported me, made me laugh when I was taking myself too seriously. You taught me that there's more to life than business deals and quarterly reports, that love and partnership and building a life with someone you admire can be just as important as professional success. He paused, his voice growing softer. You're the bravest person I know. You faced prejudice and discrimination, and instead of letting it break you, you became stronger. You stopped hiding who you are and forced the world to accept you on your own terms. I'm in awe of you every single day, and I promise to spend the rest of my life supporting you, challenging you, and loving you with everything I'm. Lily was crying before she even started her vows. Alexander, she began, her voice wavering. For most of my life, I believed I had to hide part of myself to be accepted. I wore a veil not just over my face, but over my heart and my ambitions. I made myself smaller to make others more comfortable. She looked directly into his eyes. Then I met you, and you saw past the veil, past the birthmark, past all the armor I'd built up. You saw my potential before I saw it myself. You defended me when I couldn't defend myself. You loved me when I was still learning to love myself. Her voice grew stronger. You didn't save me, Alexander, but you gave me the space to save myself. the confidence to be exactly who I am without apology. And I promise to spend the rest of our lives being your partner, your equal, your greatest supporter. To challenge you when you need it, to celebrate your successes, to build a life with you that's bigger and better than anything we could create alone. There wasn't a dry eye in the audience. By the power vested in me, the officiant said with a smile, I now pronounce you husband and wife. Alexander, you may kiss your bride. And he did, dipping Lily back dramatically while their guests cheered and applauded. When he brought her back up, both of them were grinning. The reception was a joyful celebration. Dinner under string lights, toasts that made everyone laugh and cry, dancing to a live band that played everything from classical to top 40. During their first dance, Alexander pulled Lily close. Happy? He murmured in her ear, deliriously. Good, because this is forever, you know. You're stuck with me now. I think you're stuck with me, Lily countered. I'm pretty sure I'm the difficult one in this relationship. Impossible. I'm far more difficult. Just ask my staff. They swayed together, surrounded by loved ones, the future stretching out before them, bright with possibility. Later that night, as they were leaving for their honeymoon, Emma pulled Lily aside. I have something for you, Emma said, handing her a small wrapped box. Inside was a photo frame. The picture showed young Lily, maybe 10 years old, with the birthmark prominent on her face, looking uncertain at the camera. Next to it was a recent photo of adult Lily at her promotion announcement, face fully visible, smiling confidently. The caption read, Same Lily, same birthmark, different courage. Emma, Lily's voice broke. This is perfect. You've come so far, Emma said, hugging her sister tight. I'm so proud of the woman you've become. On the flight to Greece for their honeymoon, Lily and Alexander sat side by side in first class, her head resting on his shoulder. What are you thinking about? Alexander asked. About how different my life is now compared to 18 months ago. When I was fired from Sterling Communications, I thought it was the end of the world. But it was actually the beginning of everything. Funny how that works. Sometimes the worst things that happen to us lead to the best outcomes. Do you ever wonder what would have happened if I hadn't applied to Blackwood Enterprises? If Victoria hadn't given me a chance? Every day, Alexander admitted. And every day I'm grateful that you did and she did. Because I can't imagine my life without you in it now. Lily tilted her face up to kiss him. I love you, husband. I love you too, wife. 5 years later, Lily Blackwood stood in the conference room of Blackwood Enterprises, presenting to the full board of directors. She was now Chief Strategy Officer, a position she'd earned through exceptional work and innovative thinking that had increased company profits by 43%. The birthmark on her face was fully visible, as it always was now. She never wore the veil anymore, hadn't in years. It sat in a drawer at home, a reminder of who she used to be and how far she'd come. The analysis shows clear market opportunity in sustainable infrastructure, Lily explained, clicking through her presentation with confidence. We can position Blackwood Enterprises as a leader in ethical investment while generating significant returns. The data supports moving forward with this initiative. The board members nodded, taking notes, asking intelligent questions. No one stared at her face. No one made comments about her appearance. They were focused on her ideas, her expertise, her leadership. After the meeting, Alexander caught up with her in the hallway. Even at work, where they maintained professional boundaries, the love between them was evident in every glance. Excellent presentation, he said formally. Thank you, Mr. Blackwood. Mrs. Blackwood, We have dinner with the Singapore investors tonight. Don't forget. Already on my calendar. She paused, then added more quietly, Emma's bringing her girlfriend by the apartment this weekend. First time we're meeting her officially. I'll make sure we have the good wine. That evening, Lily looked at herself in the bathroom mirror of Alexander's, their penthouse. The birthmark stared back at her, as it always had. But when she looked at it now, she didn't see a flaw or something to be ashamed of. She saw her mother's rose. She saw a part of herself that made her unique. She saw a reminder of her journey from hiding to living fully. Alexander appeared in the mirror behind her, wrapping his arms around her waist. "What are you thinking about?" he asked, resting his chin on her shoulder. "About how grateful I am. For you. For this life. For finally learning to love myself. You did the hard work. I just had the privilege of being there to watch you become who you always were meant to be." Lily turned in his arms to face him. "We should probably get ready for dinner." "We should," he agreed, but neither of them moved. "Alexander?" "Thank you for seeing me, for loving me, for never once making me feel like I needed to hide. Thank you for being brave enough to stop hiding, for showing the world exactly who you are, for being my partner in every possible way." They kissed, slow and sweet, the kind of kiss that spoke of years together and decades still to come. Later that night, at dinner with the Singapore investors, one of them asked Lily about her birthmark. Not cruelly, just curiously. "It's a port wine stain," Lily explained calmly. "I've had it since birth. For a long time I hid it because I was ashamed. But I'm not anymore. It's just a part of who I am." The investor nodded. "My daughter has a similar birthmark. She's 12 and struggling with self-confidence. Would you mind if I shared your story with her? I think it might help." Lily's heart swelled. "Of course. Tell her that what makes us different can also make us strong, and that anyone who judges her for her appearance isn't worth her time." On the drive home, Alexander squeezed her hand. "You're going to inspire a lot of people, you know, just by being yourself." "I hope so. I hope some girl out there who's hiding and ashamed sees my face and realizes she doesn't have to hide either. They will. You're proof that being authentic is more powerful than being perfect." That weekend, they hosted Emma and her girlfriend Sarah for dinner. Lily cooked, actually cooked this time instead of ordering takeout, and only burned one dish. "To family," Alexander toasted, raising his wine glass. "To the ones we're born with and the ones we choose." "To family," everyone echoed. As Lily looked around the table at her sister, her husband, and the new person Emma was bringing into their family, she felt overwhelmingly grateful. Grateful for second chances. For people who saw worth where others saw only difference. For the courage she'd found to stop hiding and start living. She thought back to that awful day at Sterling Communications when she'd been fired. How devastating it had felt. How hopeless. If she could go back and tell that version of herself anything, she'd say, "This is not the end. This is the beginning. You're about to meet someone who will see you, really see you, in a way you've never been seen before. You're about to discover strength you didn't know you had. You're about to stop hiding and start living fully. And it's going to be more beautiful than anything you could have imagined." But she couldn't go back. She could only move forward, grateful for the journey, the struggles, and the victories. Grateful for the man who'd seen past her veil to the person underneath. Grateful for finally seeing that person herself. "What are you smiling about?" Alexander asked, leaning close. Everything, Lily said honestly. Absolutely everything. That night, as they got ready for bed, Lily paused in the doorway of their bedroom. Alexander? Yes, love? I was fired for being too ugly. They said I didn't meet their appearance standards. They made me feel worthless. I know. But you know what? I'm glad they fired me because it led me here, to you, to this life, to becoming someone I'm actually proud of. Alexander crossed the room and pulled her into his arms. You were always someone to be proud of. You just needed the chance to see it yourself. I love you. I love you too, more than words can say. As they fell asleep that night, wrapped in each other's arms, Lily Morgan Blackwood felt completely at peace. The birthmark that had defined so much of her life no longer felt like a burden. It was simply a part of her story, a chapter in the journey of becoming who she was meant to be. She'd been fired for being too ugly. But she'd found love with a man who thought she was the most beautiful woman he'd ever seen, who saw past surface appearance to the brilliant, brave, remarkable person underneath. And maybe, just maybe, that was the most beautiful love story of all. Comment below. What did you think of their story? Share your thoughts in the comments. On a scale from 0 to 10, what's your rating? Subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications to follow all our stories, and check out more emotional stories by clicking on the end screen.